Hi guys, this is Dan. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is quite an exciting one because I have seen other booktubers are doing it, but I haven't. What are we going to do? We are going to compare the covers of fantasy books between the American and the British version. I do find it interesting that we got so many different kind of covers, not just between the UK and the US, especially with the popular fantasy books that got translated into different languages. Obviously, the cover would be tailor-made for that particular country. But in this video, we are just going to look at the covers between the American and the British ones. It will be much easier to follow. Just by scrolling down this list really quickly, I do find that the American covers are usually more detailed, more elaborate, but the British one is usually more like abstract in a sense. You will get what I mean later when we look at them one by one. It was the Postman because I have got the latest Broken Binding Fantasy subscription book and it is a new series. But this video is not about this, so just put it away first. I guess part of the reason why we got so many different kind of covers across the world is because publishers in different regions can approach their own illustrators. Like I said, these popular fantasy books will get translated into different languages, so the cover needs to be matching with the taste of the local readers. So we will have a good variety of beautiful covers for the same fantasy book and see how different regions gonna interpret the story and design the cover for it. By the way, I am from the UK, so majority of the books on my shelves are bought locally, and I really never bought any American covers, basically. I might be biased here because like I said, I am from the UK, but I am not too sure because I see these covers all the times in Waterstones. You can also play along with me to see which cover you do prefer. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to my channel Tainted so you won't miss any fun bookish content from me. Without further ado, shall we dive into this little comparison? I will start with those god tier very classic fantasy book and then move on to talk about the recent release. First of all, I have Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, the first book of the Farseer trilogy. My first impression here is very obviously, you can tell the art direction is very different between the American and the British ones. On the American cover, you can see the main character of the book in the center, and then behind him, you can vaguely see a deer or maybe a stag. Compared to the British one, there is only a sigil of that stag. Under it, we got the very lyrical writing of the title of this book. Also, you can see very coincidentally, George R.R. Martin's quotes on both covers, but they are different. The US one said, "Fantasy as it ought to be written." And then the UK one is, "In today's crowded fantasy market, Robin Hobb's books are like diamonds in a sea of zircons." I am very curious here, did George R.R. Martin say it in just one occasion or the publisher approached him twice to ask about how you feel about Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb? If you ask me which cover do I prefer, I would say it is the American one. I know some people don't really like seeing faces on the cover of the book, but I don't mind. At least I can already tell how the main character gonna look like or what's the context of the book gonna be. But if I am going to collect the whole set of Robin Hobb's work, I would probably choose the British one. I have seen this set put on display in Waterstones before, and despite the choice of the font, the color are just so coherent and it looks so grand. In case you may not know, these publishers can change this fantasy book's cover all the time. There is a discontinued older version of the British cover, and I do like that more, even more than the American one. I'm not an expert of art, so I'll try my best to describe it. It is kind of like the US one, but in a sense more nostalgic. You can see who might be involved in this story by the two boxes on the top left and the top right corner. And then in the center of the cover is like a scenery which might be important to the plot. The font chosen for like the name of the author, I don't know how to describe it, but in a sense it feels quite eye-catching, and you know Robin Hobb gonna be like a good author. If you put the whole Farseer trilogy together and look at the cover, you can see it is really uniform as well. So if you ask me, I do want like a complete set of Robin Hobb's work in that particular style of cover, but unfortunately it has been discontinued. I think it stopped just after the third trilogy of that series, the first Farseer trilogy, and then the Matchship, and the second, what's the name of the main character? You know, Fool's something something trilogy. But still, I would like to continue this series. I have actually completed the Farseer trilogy, but I just have so many fantasy series I need to work on. So Robin Hobb's one may need to wait for maybe 1 or 2 years before I pick it up again. Speaking of series I need to work on, as I said in my 2025 reading plan, I want to complete the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. So here we are, we got the cover for The Eye of the World, which is the first book of this series. Again, very obviously, you can tell the difference between the art direction these two countries are going for. On the American cover, you can really tell what this story is about. There are at least 3 riders on this cover, 2 brown horses and 1 in white. And one riding the brown horse looks really strong, looks like a warrior, and they are doing it under the moonlight. On the UK one, what you can see, basically nothing. Only the title of this book and the name of the author, or maybe a mysterious logo on the top right corner. I mean, if you haven't read this series before, how on earth you would know what these 3 rings gonna mean? And one of them looks like a wheel, and then it is like a snake eating its tail. Also, it doesn't really tell you what this series is about. I think a good cover, of course, need to have information like the title of the book, the name of the author, but also information like what genre it is, what the reader's gonna expect from the story. So unfortunately, I don't think the UK cover did a good job on it. Even later, they changed the cover. This is not the latest UK cover anymore. They add like a very foggy mountain in the background. Still, it looks very abstract. I personally love the American version much more than the British one. It's just like very good, very indie, very nostalgic, just like the last Farseer trilogy. That is also the reason why you can't really see from this angle, but on top of this shelf, I am actually collecting the Wheel of Time in this particular cover in hardcover. Maybe we can also have a look at another very popular fantasy series, The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. Now it still follows the same pattern, where you can see the appearance of the main character very clearly in the center, and then in the background you can tell what the city gonna look like. On the British cover, you can see some like very pointy black towers, but our main character is like tiny. I mean tiny. Just by looking at the cover of this particular book, I would say it is the same as like The Eye of the World, Assassin Apprentice. American version is definitely much better than the British one. But if you haven't noticed from the British cover, which is like very obvious, other than black and white on the top, there is some sort of blue mist around the character. Blue is the color that's gonna carry through the whole Mistborn series, not just Era 1 but also Era 2. So again, same as the Farseer trilogy, if I am going to collect like a whole set of Cosmere book, I would definitely pick the British one. Putting the whole series on display, 7 books in total, and showing the spine with like the blue color carrying through would make so much sense, would look so like coherent. And of course, there are different books, different series in the Cosmere, and the British publisher used different color to distinguish them. Let's say the Stormlight Stormlight Archive gonna be red, and then Wallbreaker gonna be purple, Elantris green. The Secret Project is tiny bit inconsistent, should I say. So if you are a big fan of Brandon Sanderson and you want to collect all the books in the Cosmere, I would encourage you to get the British cover in terms of the consistency, and it will look so good on your shelf. If we have the Final Empire, of course I am going to talk about the Stormlight Archive. So we have The Way of Kings, the first book of the series. Very obviously on the American cover, you can already see a knight or maybe a warrior standing on a cliff, pointing the sword towards some sort of sunset. So basically, very efficiently summarizing what you're gonna expect from this book. Again, I love how direct the American cover is like. Even though if you haven't heard about Brandon Sanderson before, when you see this cover in a bookshop or maybe in a library, you would easily tell this one is going to be epic. On the UK cover, which is very minimalistic compared to the American one, you can see like a knight holding a sword with some sort of red aura around him. Behind him is like a sunset. I know like the UK cover is very minimalistic, but this is also what I mean by the consistency of the British cover for the Cosmere, and it is good for the collectors. You can see the color scheme for each series is so unique. The use of font or maybe the design style is quite coherent throughout the Cosmere. I don't want to repeat myself here, but at this point you can already tell what sort of cover I do like. I love the American cover more, but like I said many times, if you are a collector or maybe a big fan of Brandon Sanderson, the whole set of the UK cover will gonna look so good on your shelf. The next one is an interesting one because it is a fantasy book that I have DNF. I have The Lies of Lord Lamora by Lynch, the first book of The Gentleman Bastard. This is probably the first book on this list that I can't immediately say which one do I prefer more, not because I have DNF this book. But the style of these two covers is quite similar because they are both describing the landscape of Camor, where the story taken place. In terms of the painting style, I am not an art expert here, but it is like water painting in a sense. The only difference is on the British cover, you can see our main character, Locke Lamora, and then a very green canal under him. If you ask me which one do I prefer more, I don't really have a preference here. They both look really good. So I guess it is the very first time we got a draw here. After some very popular titles, now we can move on and talk about some recent release. The first one I have here is not quite a recent one. It is Babel by R.F. Kuang. At first, I thought the American cover is like the special edition from Enigmacrate because I vaguely remember the Enigmacrate one used this like as a background for their special edition cover basically. I didn't notice it before. If you look kind of closely, you will actually notice the background of these two covers is actually the same. The American cover used like a very golden font, which is kind of similar to the one that is used on the Lord of the Rings movie poster. Then the British one this time is really bold because it kind of create like a tear paper texture and then put the 5 letters BABEL vertically in the center of the cover. If you ask me, this time is really easy. The American cover is definitely better because you can really easily tell the title of this book and who wrote it. The British cover is quite bold, but I just don't get the style of it. I just don't know how to appreciate it, and it is a bit weird to have the author name vertically as well. It's just not coherent because an arcane history on the right of the British cover is written horizontally. If you print everything vertically, that should be vertical as well. It's just weird. And it is such a waste for the British cover to hide the tower by printing the title of this book over it. The American one is really good. Then I have a book that I have read but DNF the series, The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. This time it's not like the Babel. The American cover is really eye-catching. You don't have to think much here. You can easily tell this one is going to be about an adventure on the sea. There is some sort of massive octopus sea monster hidden under the sea and ready to attack the ship. Also, the color used here, the yellow of the sky and the blue of the sea, is very vibrant. Then the British cover, I wouldn't say it is bad. It got some sort of details across the cover. But compared to the American cover, this one doesn't scream sea adventure. In a sense, it is quite subtle. So this time I would choose American cover again. The next cover we're going to look at is a book that I have finished and I really enjoy it. We have The Tainted by Robert Jackson Bennett, the first book of Shadow of the Leviathan series. This time I would say it's quite different because it is so opposite to what we have seen. The American cover this time is actually going for quite a subtle direction, but in a sense quite classy. Maybe it is because of the foil-like design. The UK one is quite bold because the blood moon already draws your attention, and then from there you can see what this book is going to be about, a crime story. Looking at the American cover, it is more about how the murder is committed. Wouldn't say much here, but if you have read this book, you will get what the cover entails. Finally, I can say I prefer the British cover more. It is quite eye-catching but mysterious. The last one I have for this video is The Night Ends with Fire by K.X. Song. The structure itself is also quite similar. A mythical creature on the top and then a character in the bottom. The only difference is the American cover got like a phoenix and then the British one got like a dragon. After finishing this book, I would say the British cover is closer to the plot. If not, you can tell by the synopsis. The main character can communicate with a sea dragon. The American cover kind of feel a bit empty, I don't know why. But looking at the British cover, the sea dragon got some sort of like greenish color on it, so I love this colorful cover more. So this time I will still choose the British cover. So here comes to the end of this fun video. I love doing it. I love seeing like how different countries gonna design the cover for the same fantasy book. I actually wanna do another comparison-ish video for special edition, especially from book subscription, to see the difference between the cover of this book subscription and then to the standard one. Let me know, do you think it is a good idea? So if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to my channel Tainted so you won't miss anything from me. I will see you all real soon. Goodbye!